All right, let's move on to the Bombers. And, of course, well, the Bombers. They've played finals in 3 of the last 7 years, never finishing higher than 8th, 11 wins and 12 losses last year, 5th after round 17. We all know that they dropped away badly. They had a percentage of 107 at that stage, and it ended up with just 89 as they got absolutely smashed by the Giants.
Is this your perennial stuck in the muck?
Yeah, it is. And what are you doing to win those extra 2 to 3 games or save the losses, if you like? That's just Essendon. And I think the fans are sick of it, just being a so-so team. Yeah, the talent has always read better than the results. And that highlights it better than any other graph that you'll see.
So Ben Mackay, Xavier Dersma, Todd Goldstein and Jade Gresham added. A bit of hype around Nate Caddy already, and Zirk Thatcher as the main exit.
Yeah, I like some of the additions. I think Ben Mackay will really add to them, and Gresham some talent in the forward half. But you're right, they're so hard to assess, Essendon. I mean, they were 8 and 5 at round 13, had some really good traits, and then they were just poor, like really poor the back end of the year in every facet of the game. They couldn't score, they couldn't move the ball, they couldn't defend. They couldn't lock it in their front half, and they went 3 and 7. And 2 of those wins were North Melbourne by 9 points and West Coast by 1 point.
Yeah.
Like what do you make of Essendon? As you touched on, their talent is there. And I think you look across the board and there's talent everywhere. But what's the best mix? Where do they play? I'm looking at the midfield, and I think there's a lot of names in this midfield with Merritt and Parrish and Hobbs and Caldwell, Setterfield. Durham's been thrown in there, Sardis, Shield, Perkins. But what's their best combination? And for me, I think it has to be built around Darcy Parish. I think he's their number one man in the midfield. And surprisingly, when you take a look at it, of all the midfielders in the last 3 seasons, he actually rates as one of the elite midfielders in the game. He's 4th for average clearances, 3rd for disposals, 3rd for score involvements, which will surprise some people. They think he doesn't really get involved. 11th for score assists and high in score launches. He's their clearance man. He's their Lachie Neale. So I think they need to build their midfield around him. And I would actually like to see Zach Merritt be played a bit more like Nick Dacos. Throw him around everywhere and anywhere and mix it up. Give the opposition different looks. Start him at half forward, maybe play him at half back. Use him as their best kicker and their best player to sort of trick just to throw something at the opposition, but build it around Darcy Parish.
You've got to stop talking about Nick Dacos, seriously. I think they get some stability behind the ball for the first time in a long time. Zach Reid doing a full pre-season.
Ben Mackay.
And Ben Mackay. I mean, they're 2 monsters.
Yep.
They're 2 big bodies. Reid can seriously kick the footy, so he doesn't slow you down on the way out. I think he's one they just need to stay healthy. He's looked terrific. I like the use of Nick Martin across half-back, playing that Nick Dacos role. He's freewheeling. Now, he's a damaging player. He didn't have a great pre-season game against the Saints, but what they're allowing him to do will impact the scoreboard. Now, they're going to take a few risks defensively to accommodate this, and this is a team issue, but I think this will have a massive impact. I think he's one of the really creative Bombers at the moment. They get him and Redmond now. The difference between having 1 to having 2, I think, significant. So I like the use of Martin. The big worry for me at Essendon is I still think they're a nice footy club. Last year was the time to call it for Dyson Apple, but they go another year. Now they'll try and service Dyson, whether that's as a wingman or a halfback, and I don't really think that helps the way they want to be expressed and move the football. Does Jake Stringer just beat bottom 10 teams, or does he actually change games against top 8 teams? They've got to make some tough calls there. Andrew McGrath, nice player. Pick one, playing back pocket. You've got to demand more of each other. They've got to ask for more. So I think it's time to raise the bar. If you're an Essendon player or an Essendon supporter, you should want more. I mean, who really plays with any anger to change the course of games, aside from Sam Draper? I just don't see it. So they've been a nice footy club for too long, and they need to do something to stop this meandering existence that they've had and just being an average footy team.
Has anyone got them making the 8?
No, I'm like King. I need to see it before I can trust them. Exact same words I had. Nice footy. Are they ruthless? I'm looking at the leaders. So Laverde, Langford, McGrath, Redmond, Parrish, Ridley, all their leaders that have been there for a number of years now. Are they going to stand up and be a ruthless footy club? And when the chips are down, find a way to work themselves out of it and get the best out of this group. But at the moment, I can't trust it until I see it.
Yeah, I think they could.
Yeah, I want to root for Essendon. I like the talent across the board, but how can you?
Damien Hardwick, of course, is now in charge, and after those years of mediocrity, at best of 12th with 10 wins in 2022. The last year's 9 wins, 7 of those at home. Did see change at the top with Damien Hardwick, who becomes the 4th permanent coach of the Suns, and of course the young kids I guess, holding a lot of the hope for improvement, along with the natural improvement, and Ben King as well, now with a year under his belt after that knee reconstruction.
Yeah, well, Damien Harvey's declared it's now, isn't it? He thinks finals is a minimum expectation for this playing group. So it's going to be fascinating to see what they deliver. When you do look at it, my first thought is there's so much scope for improvement with this team. When you look at the players in that right age bracket between 23 and 27, they've all still got another level to go to. You know, Lukosius and King and Ainsworth and Charlie Ballard, Powell, etc. We can go through the list of names. So he's got a lot to work with. We know he's got the academy kids coming in as well, and there's some excitement around them. It's just going to be interesting to see how quickly they can adapt to Damien Hardwick's game style. A lot of talk about the Richmond way. That's what he's going to bring to the football club. But how quickly can they adjust to that? Get the spike immediately, like the Giants and Collingwood have done with that Richmond model, or does it take a little bit longer?
Well, it's a good question, isn't it, around is footy, is any team about the personnel or about the system that the coach puts in place? Do you automatically use the same system when you go to a different club if you have different personnel?
Well, he's got a system that I still think's the best that the game has seen, the way that they excite and they explode and they basically turn every game into a turnover battle. And you end up playing the old Richmond game regardless of whether you're designed to or not. So, look, I just love the fact that Gold Coast have taken the risk. It's caused enormous trauma internally to get Dame into this point. A squad of 40 has looked at the main man out the front, who's always been under pressure at the Gold Coast. Always. Whether it be week 1 or week 30, that coach has been fighting for his own survival. They get a guy up there now who's got all the stamps and stripes on the shoulders that says, hey, I'm the man. I've got the answers. This is how we play. This is what I need from you. This is what I need from you. I think two of the biggest beneficiaries of that will be Charlie Ballard down back at centre-half back, because centre-half back has to involve a key intercept marking tall. It's always been built around that zoning defender, and I think Ballard's that man. I think he could go to All-Australian levels. And Noah Anderson's the other one. I think that he, as a midfielder...
You love him.
I do love him, but he's played his game. And now Damien Harvey will say, hey, listen, this is what the team needs you to do. We need you to get the ball more in the forward half of the ground. We need you to be more exciting with your ball use, not just hitting a target. We need you to hit the aggressive targets. Be a corridor runner. I think you'll see the best of those guys, and then the rest will filter from there. I'm really excited about where the Gold Coast are going. I'm not sure whether they can do it first year under Damien, but I think in 2 to 3 years they're winning the flag. It's just a matter of how quick they get there.
Wow. The flag. Yeah.
Okay. To answer your question, that's my only question mark about the personnel with the Richmond style. So I agree, it's still one of the most effective systems that Collingwood and the Giants have played. But when I look through their list, their strength in previous years has been their clearance game, hasn't it? They're contest bulls. So DeSwallow, Holman, Miller, Anderson, Rao, Flanders, Fiorini, Atkins, Darcy McPherson, are they the transition, high-speed, high-endurance runners that the Richmond team had when they won the flags under Damien Hardwick? I'm not sure the personnel right now fits exactly that system, and you compare it to the Collingwood and the Giants teams that have a lot of those players that can run. That's why, for me, it's just a sit and watch at the moment. I'm fascinated to see how quickly they do adjust. I don't think it's the cattle exactly that they need to play this style of game. So, for me, I've just got them out of the 8 at the moment.
Do you agree with that analysis? Or not?
Potentially. I just don't think we've seen them play a system like this.
Yeah, they've played
it's a great unknown.
Yeah.
I like the fact that that's tabled, and let's just see whether they can adjust to that or whether they can't, because you can come from a long way back. We saw Collingwood go 17th, 4th premiers. Melbourne, 17th, 9th premiers. Richmond, 13th premiers. Dogs went 14th, 6th premiers. So you can do it. I don't think they'll do it this year, but I think this will be a significant step forward. Whether that's finals or not, we'll all have our own opinions, but they're winning it in a couple of years.
Okay, they're winning it. That's great news for Mark Evans and for all the Gold Coast hierarchy. The new coach bounce was evident last year, wasn't it? With Brad Scott and with initially at least, and then Adam Kingsley and also with Rossi. So, well,
it is possible. Absolutely, it's possible. They could play finals and they get that spike from the new coach. At the moment, with just so many teams trying to vie for a spot in the top 8, it's so competitive. I haven't got them in this year.
Yeah, I'm the same. We've all got them just missing.
We've all got them just missing, but significant improvements with how they're going to play.
I think so. And the academy kids, we just don't know how quickly they can really add to them, do we?
They've got to win at home. Yeah. Like 2 and 5 3 years ago, 5 and 4, 5 and 4. Yeah, they win in Northern Territory, but they've got to make that a fortress.
All right, that's the Suns. Ross Lyon, they returned to finals, of course, first up last year. The Saints, their only better season since he left was 2020 when they won a final under Brett Ratton, and they were one of 3 sides that stayed in the 8 all year in his first year of finals. And there's been a lot of excitement about them in the pre-season. Henry, Bonner, Dow could all add something. Of course, some high draft picks from the past, Jade Gresham and Jack Billings, have departed. They're mid-range for age and experience, 10th and 11th in terms of matches played.
Yeah, just bridging the gap between the youth they're bringing through and some of the players that have been there for a long time. But you know what you're going to get with St Kilda, don't you? I mean, 9 of their 10 losses last year were by 28 points or less. Even when they didn't win, they were in every game. They're really strong defensively, a top 3 defence in the competition last year. A strong contest and sort of ground ball game, the turnover game. Of course, their biggest room for improvement was their ability to score, going inside 50, the connection with a young forward line at times and the way they wanted to move the ball. But that's been a big focus of theirs over summer. They've brought in personnel deliberately for that reason that can run and kick and add to the outside game. I really like the way that they're heading. I can't see with a Ross Lyon team why they would go backwards with another year under his system. The development of all these young players that we've spoken about, we know the names that are there, along with a fit and healthy, Max King, Rowan Marshall, Jack Steele, who was injured last year. I expect to see the best of Jack Steele. I think it sets up really nicely for the Saints to have another tilt at finals.
And we saw some genuine excitement about the way they were playing late last year and certainly through the pre-season, King, which for Saints fans is really exciting.
They are going to be one of the teams to watch this year. They're going to be one of the most watchable teams of 24. And I talk a lot about the excitement of half-back flank counter-punch. And Hill, Henry and Wanganeen Miller. Wanganeen Miller is going to be a top liner. I don't know where his football is going to finish, Joey, whether he can become a midfielder or just stay as an elite half-back flanker. But whatever he does, the Saints fans are going to cash in and absolutely love what they're doing. Riley Bonner has been a tremendous acquisition and has impacted almost immediately. The seasoned campaigner just knows what to do at the right time, good enough skills to pick off that target that others are avoiding. Paddy Dow will play a role for them, but I just think it'll be their run and excitement and explosion off half-back. I love Darcy Wilson. He's one player that's going to play a lot of football, particularly early. And we talked a lot last year about Owens and Windhager and these guys. Owens and Filippo are the two that I think are going to make a rapid rise. Very different sorts of players. I don't know how many goals they can kick between them. I'm just not sure if it's just goals you mark these guys by. But the Saints are certainly not getting any poorer for the off-season. I've got them as one team that can push into the top 4. I like what Ross has done. The ultimate lemon squeeze of Ross Lyon. Like every player plays. They look in sync, Joey. That's the one thing that hits me. Every time I see them play, every player knows their role. They don't look to be confused. They're very settled.
So organised behind the footy. I think they know what they're trying to do on offence, and now they're adding the personnel to do that. And you've got to remember too, Membry 7 games last year, King 11 games. They only played 2 games together, which is their 1-2 punch. So you get another full season if they can both stay fit and healthy with Cooper Sharman or Caminiti, whichever one. But I think it's probably Sharman as the third big banana, combined with a few smalls. Look, I think they're heading really nicely, and it's going to be just a matter.
Is there any?
They're in that window. You talk about the red, the bracket. How do they get to the top 4?
So, does anything worry you about them then? Or?
Look, I still think that these young players, how far away until they can elevate to be all Australian? Owens and Windhager and Filippo, can Max King elevate? Liam Henry and Windhager, can they jump on board when they can bridge the gap and become elite? Combined with the 4 or 5 elite players they've got at the moment, but are still young enough because they're getting up, Sinclair and Steele and Marshall getting close to 30. If they can combine the two, that's when they'll be a top 4 team for me.
And they had 32 players play last year, which is the AFL fewest. So I know they had some players that were injury impacted, but in the main, I think they had 16 players play 20 plus games. So health was a bit of a ran for them last year. I think Ross needs to challenge the back office. Go and land as a free agent in the next 12 to 18 months of note to really shake the foundations of the footy club because they still don't have that player. So I think if they are to become a premiership contender, it's via some sort of free agency acquisition.
All right, huge round 1 match against the Cats as the stand gets open down there. So let's see where we've got them. And Joe, you've got your...
I thought I had them in my top 8.
They gave you everything in life.
Hang on a minute. I think that's I had them 8th. So,
did you?
Yes, we'll have to check what's happened there.
I'm going to do an audit. I'm doing an audit on how many
do an audit.
This is a likely story, King.
I thought I had them in the 8.
This is the way he's trying to avoid
I can see.
any feedback for it.
Yeah. No, I got him in the 8 and potentially, if you're looking for a team that's not the obvious to break in the top 4, they'd be mine.
Okay. All right. So from the Saints, we move along to the Western Bulldogs. And there's always conversation around the Doggies, isn't there? In the past 7 years since the premiership, the Bulldogs have only made it past week one of the finals once, and that, of course, was that 2021 grand final appearance over in Perth. 12 wins got them into the finals in season 2022, but it didn't last year with the one extra game. And, of course, big shake-up around Luke Beveridge in the off-season. So Harms and Caulfield perhaps adding some depth. They'll have no Bailey Smith. They've cleaned up a bit at the bottom end of their list. Sixth most experienced in terms of games and age.
So if we just step through the graphic there, 0 to 5 wins, home and away season, you're rebuilding, either entering it or coming out of it. 8 wins is about a given. Every team wins 8 wins plus. 9 to 14 is where you get stuck in that middle ground of the AFL table, and every team has been bouncing around there for a while. 15 plus is when you're actually in premiership contention. Now the Dogs, as you can see on the graph there, have only won 15 plus once, but in the last 7 years, they've never finished top 4. Even when they won the 15, I think they finished 5th. They just fell out late in that 21 season. I'm a believer in Bevo. I know he's unconventional and he's a bit like Frank Sinatra. He does things his own way. And not everyone loves the way that he operates. He doesn't want to talk to the media. That's fine. He just wants to coach. I'm happy with that. I think that in the end, it's wins and losses that get you hired or fired in this game. Now, he's got, in my opinion, the best set of tools going around that he's had for some time. He's not going to get a better set than Tim English, Sam Darcy, Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, Aaron Norton, Liam Jones down back, and then probably there's a few others around the edges that could fill a role. But they are an outstanding set of tools.
And how to deploy them
is to maximise those. And I think he has to allocate marquee roles to those that can deliver. And I think Sam Darcy's that man. I'm really excited about where they can go with Sam Darcy this year. The time for waiting is over with Sam. 3rd year now. I think I saw him play an intra-club game down there when Norton was used higher up the field. He played virtually as a ruck rover and he commanded full forward. He took 3 or 4 of the biggest marks you've ever seen. It's time to make, I think, Norton a secondary or tertiary product in terms of your targets in the forward 50. Give Darcy and Jamarra the reins. Yeah,
for me, I just think they just need to figure out who they are. Like, what do they look like? What's their system? How do they want to have an identifiable brand? Because some teams you can see, yep, this is how they want to play. Bulldogs, it's always a hard one to see, and they've been so consistently inconsistent. They go on runs of wins, runs on losses within games. I've heard Luke Beveridge speak about, speaking to his playing group, about our run-ons of goals against in quarters has been an issue. Like, they're a great clearance team, but then they don't score from clearance because what's their system? Their ball movement off half-back, they've got great kickers, but then they don't seem to transition the ball well. So they've just got to figure out what it looks like. And maybe it is building around the tools. Can you build a game style that sets up for your tools rather than flicking around by handball too much? Maybe kick it.
Yeah, so what
kick
is
the
that?
concept.
Is that just...
It depends. It's up to them, how they want to play, what they want to build it around. I just want to see it. So I'm going to be looking for that early in the year to say, right, this is an identifiable brand of how the Western Bulldogs are trying to play this year.
And they got the Rising Star winner. Riley Sanders will win the Rising Star. No, he's a ready-made, plug-and-play type midfielder. So I'm a little bit more bullish on the Dogs than most. I've got them in, mate.
Me too.
You have as well?
Yep.
Interesting. It's disappointing.
So no worries.
You haven't been a great judge historically. No, I'm still a believer in Luke Beveridge until I see otherwise.
They burnt me last year. I was a believer in them last year, and they let me down. I'm with you. They could be another team that I have egg on my face. They could absolutely finish even top 4 with the top end talent they've got. Jamarra Ugle-Hagan coming along in leaps and bounds, but they're just so hard to put a finger on for me, so I've got them just outside the 8.
Time will tell, as it will for the Hawks, who obviously the start of the season hasn't been great in terms of injuries, but it is going to be a fascinating third season, isn't it, under Sam Mitchell? They won 8 games last year, 1 more than the year before. They've played in finals, 4 finals since their last flag back in 2015 and not won any of them. But a fit Mitch Lewis added with their acquisitions up forward, Joel Gunston, the wizard Watson, and hopefully, and Ginnivan, hopefully will make a difference to their strike power. Yeah, I mean, it's the 4th year of their rebuild, the 3rd year under Sam Mitchell. And we just want to see some continued improvement. So, I mean, we know they've been a highly inconsistent team over the last couple of seasons, that they can have some great wins, which we saw beating the 2 grand finalists. But then they had 8 games where they lost by 54 points or more. So for me, this season, I just want to see them bridge the gap and be more consistent with their performances. To do that, they need to start to build a bit of a defensive profile. It's been bottom 3 for the last 3 or 4 seasons. Their midfield is becoming their strength off the back of Will Day and Jai Newcombe, who we know are going to be All-Australian
calibre players. So still a fair way off for me in regards to being a finals team. It's still a real work in progress. But I want to see them continue to develop parts of their game so that they can continue to elevate themselves up the ladder.
Oh, in real terms, I think their hopes for their season finished on Feb 15 for me, because they just had so many injuries in one day.
Yeah.
Jath, blank, Denver Granger, Barras, and Moore, obviously with the glandular fever. Will Day still working his way back from a foot issue. I think they do have what's going to be a strike forward line. You know, the ball on the deck in this forward line bobbling around. You're going to have Bruce down there, who's done it forever. Ginnivan, who's a good AFL player, I think. Little Watson, he is going to bring highlight after highlight. So you want to get your tackle technique right in the forward half, because they got some loaf duckers down there that are going to make it really hard to clamp them. But
I can't wait to the Collingwood fans when they play Hawthorn screaming for him to say, too high.
I think they've found a couple of players. Connor McDonald, I think, is going to become a serious AFL player, whether he's a midfielder or play forward of the ball. Henry Hustwaite, who is a 195 centimetre on baller that wins his own clearances. I really like him. And we talk a lot about Newcombe. So you're right. They've got enough to work with. Weddell's becoming a serious player, and his run off halfback will be important. They're going to really struggle. They're going to get some heavy scores kicked against them. I think Sicily's the mainstay down back, but outside of that, there's some problems.
Particularly if they play Blake Hardwick forward, like they're discussing. He's probably their second most reliable defender. And, I mean, I don't mind him forward, because people forget, as an under-18, he was an elite forward. He kicked 56 goals in 16 games in under-18s. He had a game where he had 22 disposals, 12 goals.
Fascinating, isn't it, after all this time?
Yeah, he was a forward. He had another game where he kicked 10 and another game he kicked 8. So he can kick goals. Whether they need him in defence, though, is probably going to be the big question for me. I'm not as bullish about the forward mix. Like Marviol Chol is basically replacing Kazitsky. I know he kicked 44 goals a couple of years ago, but he's kicked 39 in his other 34. Jack Gunston, what sort of form is he going to bring? A guy that's kicked 32 goals in the last 3 seasons. Mitch Lewis is the star. Fit Lewis is going to be the big one for them. He's their number one man. So
have we all got them still in that bottom part, or
I think they're building beautifully. They're doing everything you have to do when you have a bottom-out rebuild, and they're still 2 or 3 years away from becoming a serious footy team. 2 or 3 drafts. They need to do what I said about St Kilda. They need to give them prime time free agents to be serious about winning it.
Yep.
But the coach is doing everything you have to do at this stage.